This week, the Seminoles passed the Crimson Tide in number of fans across the U.S. We're going to talk about it and what it means not only for Florida State's brand, but also potentially conference realignment. So let's get after it. Okay, this week, according to a study by the marketing research firm SBR Net, it was analyzed by AL.com and the Center for Sports Analytics at Samford University. Florida State jumped into the top 5, while Alabama fell from number 2 to number 6 as far as the most popular college football teams in the United States goes. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Duke at number 4. A lot of basketball carryover there based on the research. And then Florida State 5, Alabama 6. Interesting numbers there. Florida State obviously hasn't been the darlings of college football the last few years, have struggled for the last couple of years, but with a 1-10-win season, they jumped up huge to pass Alabama and go into number 5. We will link that research. We'll link all of that below in the description so you can go check it out. Really interesting stuff there. But Richie, I think this speaks to the brand in Tallahassee, the brand that is Florida State University. I know that Georgia, I know that Ohio State, I know that Alabama have been the darlings of college football here recently, but it is a reminder to the country of what kind of brand Florida State holds when they are on top and when they are fully bought in and fully invested. Are you surprised to see Florida State jump up ahead of Alabama with just one 10-win season?
Not at all, TJ, because, again, like you mentioned, when Florida State is good, everybody wants to watch. You know, this goes back to the late 80s, early 90s, where they either love to watch you or they hate to love to watch you. You know what? We always joke about, hate listens count too. Well, hate views count too when it comes to Florida State, and they're just a polarizing program. You know, you go back to the run with Jameis, and Jameis Winston at one point, I believe, was like 3 of the top 5 articles on ESPN.com's homepage. It's just a polarizing brand, and with this fan base, and we are very active on social media, so this doesn't surprise me either, but this fan base loves this team, and when they're good, people love to hate us, so it doesn't surprise me at all.
You know, it really does go back to Bobby, like you mentioned, in the 80s and the 90s, and that anyone, anytime, anywhere mentality. And because Florida State would travel and play literally anyone, anywhere, anytime, that brand got so much more recognition across all parts of the country. Florida State would go up and play in the Big House, or they would go up and play at Ohio State, or they would play at Nebraska, or Penn State, wherever. And Bobby didn't care. Bobby would go literally live by that mantra of anytime, anywhere, anybody. And that just was uncommon for that time period. And Florida State was obviously an independent and didn't have a conference that they were aligned to, and they could go do that. But they'd go play games at Notre Dame, and they'd go play anywhere and everywhere. And so you'd have so many people. You talk with fans that are a little bit older than us, Richie, like 40 plus, and they will tell you, my favorite team was X, but then my second favorite team was Florida State. I lived in Syracuse, New York, or I lived here, there, and everywhere. And the reason I cheer for Florida State is because they were on TV. My favorite team, I maybe was able to watch, maybe I wasn't, but Florida State was on TV every single week because they were playing somebody like Syracuse or Michigan or Ohio State or Notre Dame or USC. Whoever it ended up being, Florida State was there playing them. Florida State obviously has a rich history of playing teams in all different aspects and areas of the country, and I think that's contributed to the brand. And I think one good season, just one 10-win season, is why you see Florida State jump up into that top 5. They pass Alabama, who have been the team of the last decade, without a doubt, and they take over that number 5 spot. Okay, so tell me this, though. When we talk about this and when we look at it, Florida State's almost built like a media campaign, and Michael Alford, our AD, has certainly been on the forefront of this, but they have built a media campaign of explaining how large the Florida State brand is, how crucial it is, everything from Mike Norvell's new salary to the ACC numbers that you look at when it comes to viewership on TV. Florida State has certainly been positioning themselves as the brand. Do you expect Michael Alford to sell this pretty hard too?
I mean, why wouldn't he? I think Michael Alford has proven to be a great businessman. Anytime we've had him on the show, he's always, hyping up the brand, which there's not a whole lot of need to hype it, but it's always nice to remind people, the most watched game in week 1 this season is going to be Florida State LSU. There's no question about it. Yeah, you can say it's on a Sunday. It's the only game. Even if it was Saturday night, it would be the most watched game in the country. And that's just what it is. It was the second most watched Sunday football game in ESPN history last year when we played them in New Orleans. Florida State just carries that brand, that weight, and the country takes notice. And Michael Alford is a very smart man for pushing that out there. Like, any company that's doing something well, you want to make sure other people realize it because they may not. And Michael Alford's not shy of that. And I think he's a phenomenal athletic director. And we're going to continue to keep letting everybody know that, hey, this little old team in Tallahassee, Florida, when they are good and they are playing big games, people tune in. See Black Friday this last year when we were playing a no-name team down from a little south of us.
So I think that this could certainly impact conference realignment. Just before we talk about that, I want to give some love to our friends over at Garnet and Gold. They have the absolute best when it comes to licensed FSU apparel, merchandise, gear, whatever you're looking for, garnetandgold.com. They are the last remaining retailer, family-owned and operated retailer in Tallahassee, Florida, of FSU gear. They are the absolute best. They have the best prices, the best products, the best customer service. Their shipping is incredibly quick, and we will save you 15% at checkout if you enter code NOSLAW, NOSLAW. Let us know what you're ordering from Garnet and Gold. I know that spring's done. I know that we're looking toward the summer, but we are counting down the days. Around 130 days left until we kick off in Orlando. Make sure that you are stocked up at garnetandgold.com. Okay, Richie, conference realignment is going to be a big topic this week. We just put out a video earlier this week on Sunday about some rumors about the fact that some things may be moving and shaking with Clemson, Florida State, and others about to challenge the ACC's grant of rights. And I feel like this leads right directly into what we were just talking about with the brand. But any feather in the cap that Florida State can put there to chat with the ACC, chat with the SEC, chat with the Big Ten, to position themselves as that brand, as that elite national brand. I think the number of eyes that you have on you and just the number of fans that are tying themselves to your team, as referenced in this study that we've talked about today, is really, really big. And I think it is absolutely something that Michael Alford will use, whether they challenge the grant of rights in a court of law or whether they just use it to try and dissolve the conference. Whatever the situation is, it certainly feels like to me this is another feather in Michael Alford's cap and in Florida State's cap for proving their worth, whether it be in the the SEC, the Big Ten, or wherever.
Yeah, I think it's got to be the SEC or the Big Ten. And, Dave Hart is one of my favorite athletic directors in Florida State history, probably, in my opinion, the GOAT. Michael Alford has a chance to pass him and become the GOAT if he gets us into the Big Ten or SEC. And I think, like we've been discussing, he's positioning himself to basically put the SEC on notice to where the Big Ten would say, hey, we would love to get Florida State. A lot of eyeballs, solid academic, top 20 public school nationally. That's a big deal for them. But does the SEC want to allow the Big Ten to come into Florida and take Florida State? I think that's where Michael Alford is forcing the SEC's hand to say, hey, I know you don't really want to get us because of Florida, but you kind of have to get us, because if you don't, we're going to get to the Big Ten, and they're going to continue to pass you guys in revenue, which they've done the past, decade or so.
We're showing some Clemson and Florida State highlights on the screen right now, and I think there are talks about the brand that Notre Dame is. There are some other schools that haven't been swallowed up yet, like Oregon, and there are some other ones. But when you talk about a pair of schools in tandem that could potentially go somewhere, like Florida State and Clemson, there's no bigger tandem of schools, right? Like I understand Notre Dame, Oregon are out there. That's not really. But Florida State and Clemson are linked, and I could not imagine that they will end up in separate conferences. And so when you throw that pairing at the ACC, the SEC, the Big Ten, wherever we end up landing, that is really, really strong. And again, you're talking about a team that is top 5 in number of fans. And then, Clemson wasn't too far behind. I mean, they were number 16 of the I don't know, 70 or so fan bases that they ranked on here. So you're talking about two major national brands. And I think that this will be something that Florida State, again, whether it's in a court of law or whether it's, just wherever, that Florida State will absolutely use to continue to push the narrative that they are a brand that deserves the best, is one of the biggest, is one of the largest. What they're able to do with the revenue in the ACC is absolutely remarkable, and I think it's a narrative that they will continue to push. If you missed our video from earlier in the week about how Florida State, Clemson, and others may be trying to leave the ACC very, very quickly, you can do me a favor and click right here.